Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Luther.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rangers Journal on this Tuesday, the 20th of January. My name is Doug, and we're going to be having a bit of a chat tonight about this year's wonderful European escapades. To go through this with me, I've got a great couple who are going to chat about what's gone wrong this year. First of all, to my right, I've got Craig. How are you doing this evening, mate?
Aye, very well, mate, very well. Can't complain, although might start complaining once we start getting into this topic, but as of just now, we're doing all good, mate.
Good stuff, good stuff. And of course, just below us in his room of photographic beauty, we've got Cammy. How you getting on, mate?
Aye, good. Obviously, I put my name down for this before I knew what the topic matter was, so I think that was quite clever, to be honest. But there's loads to talk about with regard to where we've been in Europe and what we've done this season and where we could be moving forward. But yeah, there's always plenty to talk about, and we've got other less stressful issues prior to that.
Absolutely. And I'm delighted also to start off this evening by welcoming a new member to the community, Stephen Fleming, 5770. So thanks for joining the membership there, Stephen. Say if you can like and just subscribe to the channel, that helps hugely in helping to get the algorithm putting us out there. But if you do want to go that extra mile and become Rangers Journal 12th man, you can sign up as a member for just 99 pence a month. Put extra content for you if you do so. So a big thank you to Stephen for that. Just before we get into tonight's topic, we've got a couple of sort of bits of news I thought we would touch on. The first of which is Rangers have put out a tweet to confirm Stephen Smith as an official member of the first team coaching setup. So just to quote from the website, Rangers Football Club can today confirm that Stephen Smith will remain with the men's first team coaching staff for the remainder of the season. Smith, who made over a century of appearances for the club as a player, having come through the youth ranks, has been part of Danny Rowe's backroom staff since the German was appointed as head coach in October. He joins a strong coaching unit, assisting Danny Rowe, including Sasha Lentz, the men's first-team performance manager, Matthias Kaltenbach, the assistant coach, Sal Bibbo, the goalkeeping coach, Scott Fry, God, or otherwise known as the set-piece coach, Rhys Owens, the performance coach, and Tristan Steiner, the sports analyst. Danny Rowe said he's delighted to confirm Stephen is part of the coaching team. He's impressed me with his ability on and off the training pitch, the way he works with the players and staff, as well as his experience. I said it was important to have someone who knows the club, and Stephen has that. He has played here, and he brings that knowledge of this unique club to our coaching team. End quote. So, Craig, we spent a lot of time on the journal. I think more than one pod talking about prospective external candidates for the job, but we've promoted from within. That has, on occasion, promoted a little bit of ire, but I think this seems like a relatively smart appointment, and he is someone that knows the club. He's, as the quote said, played for the club for a period of time and has been a coach for a period of time as well. And it's clear that he's obviously impressed Danny Rowe in the time that he's been here.
Obviously, I think the thing is with him is that he has been there since Danny Rowe came in. So Danny Rowe obviously was looking for someone with that knowledge of the club. I know he had something similar at Sheffield Wednesday, which is the only other head coach position he's had. So it's obviously something he likes. It's something he believes in. Stevie Smith was there with the youth team. He obviously was the head coach for the one game between Martin leaving and Danny Rowe coming in. So he was then also working with the first team players for a little while before Danny Rowe came in. So it makes sense just to keep him ticking over. I think it's something that Stevie Smith said as well, that he's said to the club before that he is ambitious. He wants to go into first team coaching. So obviously this has been his opportunity, and he's clearly shown enough that he's worth being involved with the first team, certainly till the end of the season, and hopefully for him longer.
Absolutely. Cammy, this was said to be the kind of final piece, I think, of the coaching puzzle, as it were. We talked about the set piece coach, which obviously we brought in, and has been working to great effect in recent weeks. And this is that last piece, the sort of the local coach, if you like, the person that knows the club. How important do you think that could be for Danny Rowe as he obviously continues settling in?
I think it's always important. I think they need to be good at their job. You can't just tick the box because you've played for Rangers. You obviously have to bring something to the party, be able to, add to what Danny Rowe has brought in himself. The timing of it's quite strange. To be honest, I just find it's like almost 3 months down the line. And that's why I asked the question before we went live. I thought I had missed something, because the fact that they hadn't made a big thing of it. I think we all knew that Danny Rowe had been quite impressed with him. The fact that nothing else had happened when other guys were bringing in, but I think capability is the issue. As you say, we spoke on many pods about various candidates, Neil McCann's and Kevin Thompson's and so on and so forth. But if you've got somebody that's within the training centre that has career aspirations and is good at their job, then great. I mean, I see what Paul's saying. Rangers haven't produced any players forever. There's been one or two. So I get what he's saying, but I just don't think the structure within the academy setup supports progression from the academy to the first team, and that's another thing that's going to have to. So I think his capability as a coach, and he's obviously he knows the club. He's played in winning Rangers teams and what have you. So it's interesting also that they say just to the end of the season. It feels a bit like he's done his 3-month probation period. We're going to stick out a tweet to say that you've got the job for another 3 months, and then we'll look at it again. But maybe it's just the way that they're going to reassess it as it goes on, rather than giving him a 3-year contract and bumping his wages. Maybe just a change in approach. But good luck to him, and hopefully he's part of Danny Rowe's team for many years.
Yeah, I think he's only been officially a coach an official positioned coach since around 2021. Although I think he was doing his coaching badges maybe with us before that. So he's not had a huge amount of time to bring through great stars in his defence. But one player that has come through during Stevie Smith's time with the club is Finlay Curtis, and it would seem, although there's not been a totally official announcement yet, it would seem that the deal is pretty much done for him to go to Kilmarnock on loan for the remainder of the season. Craig, Curtis has obviously been a player that's been a big part of the narrative this season, and he came in with a bang, scored a couple of important goals. Got the goal in Europe, and then the winner against St Mirren, I think it was. He's been a player that fans have had time for. He's been popular. People have wanted to see him play. And in the game just passed, he had an excellent game. Albeit I did the ratings for that match, and I rated him the second highest behind Miovski, who obviously with his hat trick just pipped it. But an exciting young player, and one that does have the potential there to hopefully become a Rangers player in future. Do you think this is a beneficial move for him?
I mean, it can be. The one thing I said is with Curtis potentially going on loan is just find him a Premier League club. I think he's at that level where he needs to play. If he's going to play, he needs to play Premier League football. And obviously we've been able to do that with Kilmarnock, assuming that everything is as we think. We're just waiting on the official confirmation. So the fact that he's playing Premiership football, the same thing was with Lyle Cameron, but Lyle Cameron's an easier sell because he's done it with Dundee. But Curtis, if he's going to go and get that experience, and it's not going to be here within Rangers, which you could argue he maybe should get, considering his output compared to other players in his position. You should get it here, but if your plan is send him out on loan, my only worry was that they would send him lower league, but they haven't. They've managed to get him playing Premiership football, which is what he needs. I think he's at that level. That's what he needs. So it's good in that account, even if you are a little bit like, well, maybe he could have stayed for the rest of the season to help out. But I mean, it is what it is. I felt the same about Lyle Cameron, but he will go up to Aberdeen and he'll probably be their best player. Finlay Curtis could quite easily be Kilmarnock's best player. They're in a relegation battle, so he could be big for them staying up. So it's good experience for him, and he will play more than he would have done here. So all in all, I think it's probably a good move.
Yep, Cammy, I think Craig hits the nail on the head there. You'll play more at Kilmarnock, and for a young player, I think that's really the biggest thing is playing as much football as possible, so that you can learn. You'll obviously learn about playing under pressure, being in a relegation fight. And sort of Paul mentions there, obviously, as we'll know, you've got McCann and Dodds there, who obviously were at the management team at Rangers not too long ago, and in particular, Neil McCann. If you're a young winger, there's few people that are better to learn from than Neil McCann, who's obviously an accomplished winger with us those years ago. Do you think that they can impart a lot of knowledge on him, and do you think he's ready to take on sort of the pressures that will come with playing in that position and in the relegation zone?
I think it's a good fit. I think it's guys that have obviously worked with him at the back end of last season. I did worry at the start of the season, even when Finlay was having an impact, that Mikey Moore coming in on loan and developing another club's player would hinder the development of our own, which has, I'm not just blaming Mikey Moore, but I think that's it's not helped the situation at all. He's going to go to a place where we play on the front foot, we dominate possession. That's not going to be the case at Kilmarnock. So I think it'll help him with regard to it's very unsexy and stuff like that, but he's off the ball work and the aspects of his game that probably he's maybe needing to work on. He's going to learn that. He's going to play under pressure because they're in a relegation battle. They're not guaranteed that they're going to get out of that. Neil McCann's got a job on there, but it's good to see us sending players on loan. I thought, like Craig, I thought he would have ended up at Wraith Rovers or somewhere like that, part of the cooperation agreement. I don't think that would really have helped Finlay Curtis. So I think this is good if he can get 15, 17 games or something to the end of the season. He might have a playoff to keep Kilmarnock up. So if he can go and be involved in 15 to 20 games, that's great. But it's good for us to send players to other clubs that can cause damage to Hearts and Celtic and Hibs and Motherwell, and indirectly be probably the best player in the Aberdeen team, be the best player in the Kilmarnock team, and maybe take 2 points off Celtic and score the winning goal that helps Rangers win the league. And these sort of things, it's our rivals across the city done it many times, Ryan Christie and so on and so forth. We haven't really used our own league. And I think if they're going to come back to Rangers, I think it's beneficial for them to develop within the league and against the players. So, yeah, Finley's had to work really, really hard. He's not an academy player that there's always been, he's going to be the next big thing. I think across his time at Rangers, he's had to really work hard to get himself to there. So he wants to play for us. And see, the one thing I like about him, he knows where the back of the net is, and he's direct. Somebody says that in the comments. He's direct, and in a Rangers team that lacks goals, I would have liked to have seen him get more opportunities up to this point. But it is what it is, and he's going out on loan, and hopefully he has a successful period and he helps Rangers, or both of them help Rangers, because it's good for the kids to go out and get games, but it's, if they can help us, that's an added bonus.
Absolutely. I'm thoroughly behind the move myself. As I say, I think nothing benefits a young player more than playing football. And like Craig said, at a good level as well. I don't think we put enough players out on loan to the teams around us, which is something we should be able to do. As much as some of the teams might not want our players, I think it's good moves for them. And as I say, he can do nothing but develop, in my opinion. So I think that will hopefully be a beneficial move for him, and let's hopefully see him up there in the top scorers come the end of the season, having bagged a hat trick against Celtic, a hat trick against Hearts. That'll do. So all the best to Finlay Curtis, if indeed that does turn out to be the move that he makes, which, as I say, at the moment it looks like it will be. So on to this evening's primary topic, which is our escapades or lack thereof in Europe this season. Europe has, for Rangers in the past sort of 5-6 years, been an incredibly welcome distraction from a lot of the trials and tribulations that we've gone through domestically in our push to try and get back to sort of regular winning ways. Something that I think probably most people, if you'd asked them in sort of 2015, wouldn't have seen coming. We were built into a really solid European unit by Steven Gerrard, which was carried on expertly by Gio. Obviously took us to a European final, something that I don't think many of us expected to potentially see again in our lifetime, never mind so quickly after 2008. And not only that, it wasn't just getting to that final, but the way we got to that final as well was really huge. We played some amazing attacking football that year. We really took it to teams of top quality, like Bayern Munich, not Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, and RB Leipzig, amongst others. And as I say, was an exit run just full of confident football and amazing nights at Ibrox. And we've carried that on over the years up until this season, where we've been really cemented ourselves as a side that teams need to look out for as we get ourselves into the latter stages of competitions. I think it's something like 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6 seasons where we've gotten to at least the knockout stages or further, depending on the permutation of the setup at the time. We, I think, earned the right to be confident and to view ourselves as a top European team at that Europa League level. This season, however, we pulled a draw that I think the majority of people, and either of you can correct me if you were different, but I think a draw that we looked at on paper initially and went, yeah, I'm really excited by this, particularly the first half of the draw, which looked like it was going to be teams that we could compete with, and looked like it would be another season of decent football, but that has not been what we saw, unfortunately, after our exit from the Champions League qualifiers. So, Craig, if we start off with the Champions League qualifying period, I've got all of our results and things on the slide here. We actually started off pretty well. We drew Panathinaikos, a really solid European side. A team that we knew would need to be wary of, and we would need to play at our best to get past. And we went into that first game. Obviously, it was a new era. We hadn't yet realised how horrible things were going to be. We bought all these exciting young players, and we rolled into Ibrox and won 2-0. And it all started as if it was going to be another good year.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Even at those 2 games, I wasn't convinced by the way Russell Martin was setting us up to play. But we were still getting results that we needed. I remember the Panathinaikos game. I remember struggling to work out what it was we were trying to do. Certainly in the first half, and then we scored 2 goals in the second half, and everything was okay. And you're kind of going in blind. It's like, well, okay, bad first half, picked up second half, cool. And then the away tie against Panathinaikos was a pretty decent ground out 1-1 result, if I remember back properly, finishing 1 each. I believe, was it Gassama scored? Was Gassama scored away in Panathinaikos? So yeah, it was a good start. At the time, you're thinking, okay, it's not great, but we can build. Maybe once players start to get things sorted, and then we move on to Pilsen, and the 3-0 game at Ibrox is probably the only time we played well under Russell Martin, that 3-0 game. And then it all just went, even that damage was done in that game, and we managed to get past Pilsen, but from then on it was just a downward spiral, really, wasn't it, that continued into domestic form as well.
Absolutely. Cammy, we just obviously spoke about Finlay Curtis. He announced himself to the Rangers fans in that first tie, scoring, as well as Gassama, who scored in both legs. It wasn't the greatest football, but we'd gotten through the round. As Craig said, we went on to play Pleasant, and that 3-0. That was probably pretty much the only game that Russell Martin football philosophy clicked in any form or shape or form. But after those first two sets of ties, I was like, okay, it's a new team. They're still gelling, but we've gotten past two solid teams and we've done okay. And I was going into that Bruges game going, this is a really tough game, but we can compete here, and we can do well if we play it to our best. And boy, was I wrong on that one when we were exposed for our frailties to quite savage degree.
I echo a lot of what Craig's saying with regard to the first two ties. I thought we rode our luck, but echo your thoughts as well, that you're thinking it's a new squad, things are going to improve, try to be glass half full and positive. But we managed to get, Bruges, I always thought, as a Champions League regular outfit, I thought was going to be a big ask, and that's how it proved. I think you said at the start when we then got the draw for the Europa League, and I think the mood was so negative, and I think there was a lot of the early red flags, even though on paper these games did look decent and winnable, and we should have been in a far better position. I think there was a degree of, this is not going to be a normal season under Russell Martin, and that's the way that it's played out. This is the worst European season in the Europa League for ages, and I think Rangers across the period since Steven Gerrard had built a really good reputation. And I think we'll probably, if we've got time, to touch on the negative impact that this season has on our overall coefficient. The Scotland coefficient's rubbish, but this is a negative for us. But it's just been a European campaign that's never really got started.
Absolutely. Craig, after that, as I say, painful defeat to Bruges, we go into the Europa League, and like you're saying, we're not full of positivity necessarily, given how things were going, but still, Genk, Sturm Graz, Brann, three teams again I expected us to compete with. I thought, as the team improves, we can go into these games and hopefully do something. And by the time we got to Roma, which was the first kind of sort of more difficult, slightly more glamour tie, if you like, I was hoping to kind of at least be in that kind of mid-table sort of zone. And again, as I say, looking to compete, if nothing else. But three losses out of three, that would become 4 out of 4, and by that point, coming out of the first half, we're sitting bottom of the entire competition, having finished in the top 8 just recently. So how were you kind of feeling by that kind of point?
Europe in my head was done after the Brann game. I thought this is just isn't going to work. although it was a bit because Bran was Danny Role's first game, wasn't it? Because he came in that earlier on that week. But the thing for me with Europe, the issue with Europe for me is the quality of the squad. The quality of the squad, we can be as high as we want about it just now. We can talk them up just now with 6 games in one in a row, just taking it back to currently. But the strength of the squad is not is not good enough. It just, if you take strikers for example, Dessers and Egeman is a better striking options than Chermiti and Miovski. It's just true. We've just taken that step down, and it's just not possible to work at that level against that sort of opposition. With the squad that we have, we brought in a lot of players over the summer. We spent a lot of money, and I don't think it was spent properly. We're at this point now where, as I say, Danny Role are getting into it. Danny Role is getting more out of the squad, but you look through the squad now and you see who's in there. There's a lot of wasted space in there as well. Leon King, I know people were saying it in the comments, Leon King is away on loan and is in the squad. Joe Rothwell, who I know Russell Martin liked, but realistically he's not good enough. Lyle Cameron, who again we think is a good player, I think he's a good player, but he wasn't getting the game time. As I've mentioned, Chermiti, if you just want to look at it, I just don't think the squad, the level of player in there is as strong as it needs to be to compete at that level. And that, I think, is the biggest issue as to why the European season has not went the way maybe we would have hoped, especially with, as you said, especially with some of the teams we were against. Like Genk at Ibrox, over what we've seen over the past few years, should be a win. Bran, relatively unknown in Europe, we should be winning that game. They put up a bit of a fight against Braga, but slightly unlucky not to win that one, but they had plenty of chances to be 3 or 4 up before Braga scored, and they couldn't take control of it. So yeah, it's just simply the quality that came in over the summer just couldn't compete at this level, this European level.
Yeah, I saw someone mentioned in the comments there the European squad, so I've just brought that up here. This was put out when for the Europa League league phase, so this should, I think, still be pretty much correct. We've maybe made, I can't remember, did we get a point to change 1 or 2 midway through? No, we wouldn't. So this should be pretty much it. I think what you said there about the strike force is a big thing. Obviously, we're only just starting to see something out of Chermiti now. In his last few games, Miovski also started slow. Danilo's really been neither here nor there. So when you compare that to how well the strikers did last season, obviously Dessers was scored goals both the years that he was here, and Egeman, again, another player that kind of announced himself on the European games. Cammy, when you're looking at that, do you remember, if you sort of put yourself back to when, again, sort of starting off, did you think that the squad was significantly weaker yourself than previous years, or were you still hopeful at that point that we could gel some of these players in well, and that some of them would play better? The likes of, for example, Joe Rothwell, who came in on after such a good season last year and has been a complete non-event.
Well, I think there was part of me trying to live in hope, but I think Craig's spot on that the recruitment has been terrible. I mean, if Scotty's watching this, I thought I was going to get through this without talking about our failure to strengthen the spine of the side, and one of these days it'll happen. But that's the issue. You know, you've taken a lot of goals out of the side. Bassa Cherny, Igaman, Dessers, 60 goals. That's an issue. I do think if Danny Rule had been appointed in the summer, we would have made a better fist of this European campaign, even allowing for the drop off in quality. I do think he would have got us up far more organised. That's one thing that you have seen far more under Danny Rule, even in the Roma game, and the off the ball structure. And as much as we still have got a bit to go middle to front, I think Danny Rule would have maybe seen us do enough to, particularly those first 3 games, to get maybe 6 points out of the first 9. I think you looked at those games and thought you really need to get a strong start. We've seen it so many times, but I mean that squad. I mean, I'm looking down and looking at the players that are either that are injured, you know, that aren't actually going to be available for the next 2 weeks. None of the players that we've obviously signed are going to be involved. So you're going to have a lot of young players sort of filling spaces on the bench. You're maybe only going to have 14, 15 senior players available for the next 2 weeks. But it's, you know, you go back to the wrong appointment being made, and then, you know, the recruitment not being to the level, although some of them are starting to pick up now. But it's interesting trying to look at the comments and a lot of stuff coming in, and there's somebody said that the next 2 games are irrelevant. I mean, I think we'll probably go into that. The Dundee game is more important, but there's coefficient points, there's prize money. There's nothing wrong with winning games. We've won 6 games on the bounce, as Craig says. Confidence breeds, you know, you keep building. And Thursday night should be Rangers looking for 3 points. I know if you get 3 points on Thursday, then you drop points against Dundee. It doesn't really. But I think the point I'm trying to make is you want to create a winning culture. But I've went round the houses a wee bit there, Doug. The squad overall isn't to the level that we've had across the previous 4 or 5 years in Europe, and that's why performances and results have been poor. Added to the fact that Russell Martin, I still have no idea what his footballing philosophy is, or what he does moving forward. He was just full of you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And, you know, positivity, guys. It's still mathematically we can still qualify. So, you know, it's not all gone yet. Yeah, I think we'll probably move on to it now. Like, I do think Danny Rule has made a difference. There's players that have improved under him. I think Max Aarons has gone from being a total non-event to at least being a solid enough squad player. Fernandez has gone from being a player that everyone thought must be horrendous because he was never picked to arguably being our best defender right now. You know, Tello Asgard has been scoring goals. Sort of, is it 5 out of his last 6, something in that regard. Mikey Moore's come on. Chermiti's come on. It really does make you think, you know, had he been in place earlier, where we might be. And he did, and I think you can see our only point thus far has come, say, from that Braga game where Craig said we did improve, albeit it was still a bit of a struggle. Ferencváros was always going to be a difficult game because they've been playing well. But going into this next game, Craig, obviously, as Cammy said, you know, we've got 3 games left this month. 2 of them are these 2 European games, and then Sammy's in there as Dundee. And I don't think anyone would argue that the Dundee game is the important game of the 3, given where we are. Win that, we've got a relatively decent chance that we'll go second, depending on the other result that weekend. But how do you see Danny Role approaching these games? I said earlier in the campaign, when we were sort of still in the mire, that I thought, right, Ludogorets is the game that we can finally get a win in, because I feel that that's the team. It's at home. They're the team that's not been doing as well. They're currently sitting 23rd, just above Celtic in the table. So of the teams that we still had to play, they're sort of the lowest. It represents an opportunity to sort of save face a little, to regain a little bit of our sort of European respect, if you like, and just sort of set things right going into that last game against Porto, obviously, which will be a difficult game away, but is a team that we've played before and beaten when we have been better. But ultimately, does any of that matter to you at all, or is it just Rowe can do what he wants for these games, just win the Dundee?
So, I mean, yeah, bottom line is you have to win against Dundee. The only thing that makes these two European games, potentially big, is that there is a automatic Champions League qualifying spot for Rangers if you win the league and you have the highest coefficient outside. I think is it outside the top 5 leagues. The team with the highest coefficient that wins the league, that wins their domestic league, then gets an automatic Champions League place. And we are, I believe, currently sitting top. We have the highest coefficient of any other team outside the top 5 leagues to qualify for the Champions League. But we have to win the Scottish Premiership. I believe it's Olympiacos are just behind us. They're a couple of points behind us. 2.75, as Paul in the comments has just said. So there's not a big gap there, and Olympiacos are looking to qualify out the Champions League. So they can potentially win more points, more coefficient points per game because they're in the higher competition. So getting as many points out of this as possible to give us our best possible chance of qualifying directly for the Champions League if we win the Scottish Premiership is the only thing that makes these two games slightly important. But I would say that the obviously, I mean, as you said, it's not just me. Everyone would say that the Dundee game, you have to win the Dundee game because depending on the result at Tynecastle at the same time on the same day, you could be going second, you could be closing the gap on first place, you could be pulling away from third place. It's just it's too big of a game not to win Dundee. But those two, if you're to put a spin on why they might be important, because the money that you get for qualifying for the Champions League is huge. So if we're able to use that shortcut, not use the shortcut, but able to take advantage of that shortcut by having the high coefficient, then that makes those games potentially important. But at the same time, that depends on how well Olympiacos do in the Champions League. So there's a lot of moving parts to that one. But you are Rangers, you are Cammy said, winning mentality. You want to win every game. Rangers should be aiming to win every game, and they will be looking to win the game. The Ludogorets and the Porto game on top of Dundee. So yeah, you're going to end up getting a highly motivated Rangers team trying to win every game. So yeah, that's my take. That's how I would make those games important to the players.
Yeah, I think Cammy, for me, I often find sometimes that people can be a bit quick to dismiss Europe if we're not in a position to necessarily come out of it with something immediate, i.e. qualifying. Whereas I think a lot of the time with European football, particularly given our position in sort of the bigger sphere of the footballing world, is that we have to consider European football from a long-term perspective as well, in terms of, people all keep talking about, the league is number one, and that's correct. But Europe, for me, is a big part of helping us to win the league, because if you do well in Europe, you will get better players come in. You obviously earn more money. Obviously, as Craig touched on there, we've got the opportunity to potentially immediately qualify for the Champions League if we win the league this season, if we keep our coefficient points up. And obviously that's huge financially. That's huge for getting in better players. If we're going into next season trying to sign players and saying to those players, we are already in the Champions League if you come to us, that's a huge carrot to players that might be sitting on the fence because they're like, Rangers, big club, love that. Scotland, not so much. Where's St Mirren? I've never heard of them. No offense to St Mirren, sorry, you were just in my head because I mentioned you earlier. Cup winning St Mirren, I should add. So, these are big things that I think, are really important and something that sometimes I think we're maybe a little bit quick to forget. And I think, that's particularly true of these games, which, as you mentioned a little bit earlier yourself as well, and as Craig touched on, there is still an element of importance to them, even though, there isn't the immediate carrot of qualifying from this league phase.
And the coefficient's a bit geeky and all that sort of stuff. And there's, for those that are on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it, the Scotland's coefficient account is the fountain of knowledge when it comes to Rangers coefficient, Scotland's coefficient. And I listened to Gavin off that very account and Adam Thornton off Heart and Hand on the Patreon network today. So it's very complicated and it isn't just as simple as Olympiacos. There are other teams potentially. Shakhtar Donetsk are actually in the Conference League, and there's point they could, if they went really, really deep in the Conference League, they could actually catch up with us. But ultimately, we get 2 points for winning tomorrow night. We get £500,000. We get 2 points or 1 point or whatever for drawing against Porto. These things are important. This is the last season that we'll probably get the opportunity, because the 5-year coefficient, our season that we got to Seville, drops off. We scored 19 points. I'm not I can't give you exact, but we go from top of that ranking to about 7th or 8th. So this is a real opportunity for Rangers. We can be caught. We are in a very strong position, but this is a consequence for the fact that we've been such a car crash in Europe this season. See, if we'd scored 8, 9, 10 points like we usually do, we would be there. We would be in that strong position, so that the only ask would be beat Hearts and beat Celtic to win the league, and then you're home and hosed and you've got that direct entry. So it's quite complicated in the regard that, but looking at it Thursday night, see if we can come out of these 2 games with 4 points. I think I'd be pretty happy. If we came out with 6 points, I would be absolutely delighted, and I think that would almost make us a shoe in at the top of that table that Craig talks about. But Europe's no, because of this season, it's going to knock on. It's really important to be consistent. And what also they were saying, Olympiacos gained Champions League football this season off the back of being top of it last season. So they've gained the benefit, but also the fact that they're playing in the Champions League, they're not picking up as many points. So you gain the financial benefit for playing in the Champions League, but you also get your arse handed to you because you're playing against better teams and you're not able to pick up points. But you want to get to the position where Rangers win the league this season, we pocket the 35 million. I'm trying to actually work out how much they would skin us for four matches in the Champions League, right enough. But it's I think if we don't win the league, getting into the Champions League is going to be very, very difficult moving forward, not just for us, but for all the Scottish teams. So I'm only concerned about Rangers, and Rangers getting enough points this season so that you then just have to be in a position where you need to top the table at the end of the season.
Absolutely. We had Scotland coefficient on the journal earlier in the season, and he really laid it out bare there, and quite stark stark fashion that after this season, European qualification for the competition, for all three competitions, becomes significantly more difficult. So it is a huge year for us if we can finish top at the end of this season, get that Champions League qualification. That could be huge to set us up for success moving forward, because it will become a point where second will no longer get you into the Europa League. Second will get you into the Conference League. The only route into the Europa League will be through the Cup. So, that change alone dramatically makes a huge difference to the outcome. And as you said, Cammy, not just for us, but for the other teams around us that are looking to qualify and be in Europe, because that's something that, I'm a big proponent of. I want all Scottish teams, and I did say all Scottish teams to do well in Europe. There's one that maybe I want them to do well to a point, and not so much, but I do want all Scottish teams to do well, because it's better for us, and it's better for Scotland as well. And I want Scottish football to improve as best as it can. So yeah, it's a big year. Craig, well, we're getting into sort of our last kind of 5 minutes, so I suppose it's now a case of like looking forward. Obviously, we've talked a lot about how terrible things have been this season, due to what was obviously a catastrophic error in managerial appointment. We've now got Danny Rule. He's making improvements to the team week on week, which is something that we've wanted to see. And we talked about it under Russell Martin when things were going badly, that things don't need to be perfect for a new manager as long as people can see that improvement week to week. And Danny Rule has by and large got most things right. Do you think, Cammy talked about getting four points out of the next two games, which to me I think is a reasonable goal. I think we should be sitting here going, we should be looking to win this first game and then try and get a draw out at Porto. Do you think Danny Rule has enough to get a little bit more out of what he's gotten out of the team since our last European match, given that he has continued to make improvements, albeit the fact that he will be sort of hamstrung by the fact we won't be able to play any of our new signings because they're not registered. Do you think he can get enough from the players that he does have at his disposal to try and get those points?
Well, he's been proving it with the games that he's had. Maybe not quite Europa League level teams that we've been playing against in Scotland, but he's been getting things done domestically. So there's a sort of just a continuation of, we need to keep doing the right things in Europe against these teams that will have similar or bigger budgets. But I think the 4 points from the two games is realistic. I think it's a realistic goal. I think it's a good point to kind of look at it and go, we're aiming for, as fans, we're aiming for 4. So let's see if we can get that or trump it. But it'll be very difficult. But yeah, I think with the players he's got, I think if he can continue doing what he's doing, then everything has a chance of falling into place how we would want it to.
Yeah, and Cammy, Paul's putting in a question here asking us why do we think Rule hasn't won a manager of the month yet. He's come into January, beaten Celtic away. He's come out with 2-0 victories back to back against Aberdeen, and then obviously a nice comfortable 5-0 win in the cup game against Allen. If we do get the 4 points, a win against Ludogorets, a draw against Porto, and he gets that win against Dundee, would that be a manager of the month performance for you?
I think he'll get it for January, as long as we don't collapse against Dundee. I don't know if the European games will play any bearing on it. To be honest, I think we lost to Hearts in December, and Motherwell lost to us in December. So it's probably, it's one of those, you had a vote, you had a vote, you had a vote, and then it was the Motherwell manager came out on top. But Danny Rule will not be caring about it. He'll just want to keep this momentum going. He always talks about the next win and the next game being the most important one. And the only trophy that Danny Rule will want to lift, or trophies that Danny Rule will be caring about, is the league title and the Scottish Cup at the end of the season. He'll not be bothering about not having a manager of the month on his cabinet, and that's he'll be getting that mentality into his players.
Absolutely. Okay, so Craig, if I could trouble you then for a prediction for the game on Thursday before we go.
I'll go 2-1 Rangers.
2-1. Who's your scorers?
Mikey Moore and Chermiti. Why not?
Chermiti. Okay, I put you on the spot there. That's fine. And Cammy, yourself?
Oh, the last prediction I done was the Old Firm game, and I got 3-1 right in the pressure. I'll go Rangers 2-0, and I'll go for Fernandez and Majowski.
Okay, good. So you've took my thunder there. I'm thinking 2-0. So that's what I'm going to go with as well. And I'll say Asgard will continue his scoring streak and a TAF penalty, because I always go for a TAF penalty in Europe. Paul's going for 2-0 as well. The Terminator and Asgard. That's a decent shout. So hopefully we can come out of that game with the victory. So just leaves me to say thanks everyone for tuning in. All your comments, everything, as you've been going through, a lot of fun stuff to read as we've been chatting away. Thanks to the guys, Craig and Cammy, for joining me tonight to go over what wasn't the most fun of subjects this season. Europe has been a great topic for the last couple of years, but alas, not this one. But hopefully we can, as I say, pick up in these last two games, and if nothing else, save a little bit of face, which I think we'll do under Danny Rule. I do have faith that we will, at the very least, put in decent performances, if nothing else. I think so. The last two games have been slightly better, even if the results haven't been the greatest. But last thing I'll just do is to thank our sponsor, Bluebell's Bar at Puerto del Carmen in Lanzarote. If you're out in that neck of the woods, do give them a visit. Tell them the Rangers Journal sent you. They've got any of the usual types of drinks and snacks that you might like. You can enjoy a bit of time in the sun or the shade. And obviously they've got all the football there, and particularly all of the Rangers games. So you needn't miss out while you're out about in the sun. So give them a shout. That's the Bluebells Bar at Puerto del Carmen in Lanzarote. Thank you very much for sponsoring us. My name's been Doug. This has been the Rangers Journal. And just remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. See ya.